with Jasami Bookworm Podcast. We're going to be recording this, so you'll be all famous whoever asks for questions today. In my hat at the moment, I'm going to say I'm Michèle, and I'm the publisher. We've been delighted to publish the phenomenal works of Joy Dakers and the photographs that she does. I also wear the hat of being a writer, so I've written stories that go along with these beautiful photographs. And my pseudonym is Catherine Grace. That tried to keep it a secret for a while because publisher and writer. But anyway, so now it's been revealed to all. I think I'd like to start the best part, the most beautiful part of this book is the photographs. So Joy, just ask you how did you start in photographs? What's your photographic history?
So I've always liked taking photographs. It's sort of something that I suppose everyone does nowadays with the fact that everyone has a phone with a camera on it. So that's how I kind of started, I guess. And my family's always been very keen on taking photographs, so that's always nice. And then I met Michèle and she saw some of my travel photography. And she loved it and felt inspired enough to write stories, so that's how the book came around. Yeah.
I remember when the first time I met Joy and the photographs, she had the portfolio with her, and the first thing I was struck with, all of the photographs were beautiful, but the cover is the one that photograph was so evocative. Could you please tell us about that?
Yeah, so the door is actually just in Budapest. So I was lucky enough to go interrailing one summer, and we were walking along the street and that's just someone's front door. So I took that picture, which is very cool. And I've had friends that have gone back since and it's still there, so you can still go and see it. But yeah, it's very colourful, and I never saw anyone come out of it, so I don't know how it opens, but yeah, so that's the cover.
Well, in the story, someone does come out of it, so that's part of it. When I'm not creative when it comes to photography, I chop people's heads off and feet and everything else. When you're looking through the eye of a camera, what is it you actually see?
I suppose the most important thing for me is the framing. I think that's what's really, I think anything can be interesting. Like if you look at some of the great photographers, they take photos of what you'd think would be something quite boring, but they make it look interesting. So I think the framing and the lighting's probably really important. So yeah, but you can probably tell from the pictures in the book that I just love colour. So anything colourful is what I like to take photos of.
When you're doing the photographs, and this obviously is travel because we love to see that. There's one where it almost looks like it's in motion, kind of thing with that, falling down.
Yeah.
How is it you know when to click it?
So that was just pure chance, really. That one, I think sometimes you are just lucky with the photographs you get. So I was on a long tail boat. So one of the photographs, it looks like the building's falling down, but actually it's a splash from the boat, so that's a secret. But yeah, I think that was just a lucky one with the continuous shooting. I think sometimes with digital photography nowadays, you are able to take as many photos as you want, which is always quite good.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite camera that you've used throughout your life?
Yeah, my favorite camera is definitely my Fujifilm, so I'm a Fujifilm person. Just because of the feel of it. They look quite retro, which I like, but the good thing is they're actually waterproof. So they're waterproof and they're quite hardy, so it doesn't matter too much. I think I've had a can of Coke spill over mine and it's still working, so that's always good.
That's true. So have you done photographic trips just before, or is it just when you've actually done journeys?
Usually it's just when I go on holiday I'll take photographs. I sometimes try now that I'm working to go out on my lunch breaks and force myself to take photographs because I think it's good to keep up, but I think it's always nice when you go somewhere new, you can kind of see it through other eyes. So usually they're holiday or abroad, not necessarily the UK a lot of the time.
Has there been a photographic disaster?
Yeah, there's always disasters, isn't there?
Those make the best stories.
I think the worst ones are the blurry runs, which you maybe don't check until you get home and then you realise that it was a really good photo but it's blurry. But I think there's ways of making it work sometimes, if it's motion, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So the type of photographs that you've taken throughout the years, has the essence of them changed, the types and such?
Yeah, I think when I first started, I just took photos of anything that I fancied. And as I've gone on, I've realised I quite like taking photos of people. So that's something I'm doing a lot more of, and kind of street photography, which is obviously a really good one because you can just go out and take photos anywhere. You don't have to have a setup, and you don't have to have a studio and everything like that. I mean, I've tried around playing with studio lighting and things like that, and it's a whole other ball game. So it's quite nice to just shoot in natural light on. Even in Glasgow, sometimes it's quite good because it's not necessarily sunny all the time, so it's quite even lighting.
We like to say that it does happen, sun in Glasgow. It
Occasionally.
does occur. So I've asked a few questions, but I know that we've got a few people here, and I think when it comes to photography and different questions, does anybody have one that they'd like to ask Joy? Please feel free. Any questions at all?
Well,
Yes.
I just wondered, when you say you just go out and take photographs of people, do you ask their permission first, or do you?
Yeah, so if it's their face, you'd usually go and ask permission, or sometimes what you can do is take the photo, and if you're going to keep it, ask them. And there's no point if it's just going to get deleted, I suppose. But a lot of the time it's quite fun to play around with, not necessarily people's faces, but like shadows if they're walking or from behind, and that can be quite interesting and be like a bit more mystery for your stories.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, you wouldn't necessarily have to. So yeah.
There's that. You had one?
Do you ever find the technology of the camera, is it unhelpful? I say that because from time to time I'm taking photographs, and the camera's got a mind of its own. I do rely on automatic features, but it's not doing what it should.
Yeah, I think I get that quite a lot. I think that's why I love my Fuji, because it's mirrorless, so what you see through the viewfinder is what you get. With, I know a lot of the DSLR ones, it takes a few goes at changing around the settings before you actually get something you want, so that's why I go for mirrorless.
Yes?
Do you ever use mechanical cameras anymore?
I've tried, but don't have the best of luck with them. It tends to be this sort of situation where I take the roll to get developed, and then there's nothing on it when it comes back. So I've given up slightly with the mechanical.
But always a possibility in the future.
Always a possibility, yeah.
Yes, sir?
You did check the lens cap was off?
I mean, that is a good one.
Yes, sir.
What is it you said you were doing during your lunch breaks, like bringing your camera to work and taking pictures? Like, where have you been going for that, whatnot? Yeah, so I work in Edinburgh at the minute, so during the Fringe that was a great opportunity because there's so many people and street performers and stuff like that. They just, anything that you can give them, they'll happily pose for you, so that's quite a good one. Lots of colour and people, which is nice, so I've been trying to kind of get out during the Fringe and do that. And then on the day-to-day, well, it's a capital city, so it's always quite busy, which lots of opportunities.
Anything? So one thing that I really love, and I have to say, I know you love color. Some of your my favorite photographs that you've done have been in black and white. Is there a theme to black and white or color, or that you can do or should do?
Yeah, so I don't tend to shoot in black and white. That would be something I do afterwards, as in like put a filter on it. And I think it just depends on the photograph. I think sometimes for people black and white works a lot better just because of the shadows, but I do love colour, so.
I think one of the reasons I love black and white is the film noir look, because it does give it such a true sense of mystery kind of thing,
Yeah.
Which is really wonderful. Any photographic questions? Anybody else? Advice about shooting? Yes, sir.
I was just going to ask you, like the Fuji camera, is there a particular one that you'd really like to have one day?
Well, if I was to pick any camera I wanted, I think it would be a Leica. I know that's probably a bit of a cliched answer, but they're very expensive, but all the greats kind of easy. Yeah. So you can do digital ones. They have mechanical ones as well, but with my past with the mechanical, it's probably best to go for digital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes?
Are you at a stage where people come to you to commission photographs?
Yeah, so while I was at university, I contacted a few people that make things, so a blacksmith and a jeweler, and I asked if I could take photos of them, which was a really fun project. And then since then they've come back to me, and people who've met through them and kind of word of mouth have asked me to take more photographs. So I think that's probably the way to do it. Once people know who you are, it can flow, but I think it's just getting out there in the first place.
I think you got a lead for one yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh. Always keeping the ear to the ground and possibilities and such like that. Well, the one thing that I really enjoyed, every time I look, as a writer, I'll put my Catherine Grace hat on right now, as a writer, whenever I look at something, it always evokes a story. And one of the things I truly enjoy about Joy's photographs is they're so evocative. They open up a world, and when I look at them, I'm usually inspired quite quickly with something, with the subject matter. I'll read a short one in just a moment to you, but I have to show my favorite. This is I know, and it's a black and white. It's terrible, but I can't help it, and I'll show the other color one. But and this one came to me when I was writing one day, and it was, as you see, it's stones just sitting one right behind the other. And where is this?
Angkor Wat, so that one's in Cambodia.
And so it's not the one I'm going to read, so I'm just using it as a teaser for when you get the book. But the important part is that when I saw this, I thought, what would happen if they came to life at nighttime, and then in the morning, when the sun rises, and they go back to sleep? But what kind of conversation would they have with each other? And that was what inspired this, about sitting, they're cramped up next to each other, and is one cheerful about, being, able to move, or is one grumpy, or is one foot hurt, and I just took one look at it, and it was just absolutely fantastic. The one I am...
Museum.
Pardon?
Made to the museum.
Yes, exactly. Darn it, someone's thought of that before. I think I wrote mine first. The other, the one that I am going to read, this is the falling down, and it's another black and white kind that I do have to say. So, but again, it was the splash of the boat, but that's what it made me think of, was, the story of someone losing their house. This one, again, it's, I'll show you a bright one. I'm not going to... there's the door, my favorite one. That's a full one of the door. And that actually is, I do have to say, it's a little bit longer, but I love that story because it's a little bit of mystery and a little bit. So it's a very short one that I will read to you, but it gives you an opportunity to see what does inspire a writer. And I will put my spectacles on so that I can actually see what I'm reading, because that would help. So it's Bangkok, Hua Hin, Thailand. Excellent. As I sip my glass of wine, I watch the sun cast a shimmery final glow through the clouds, and the sound of softly white churning waves stretching toward the sandy shore add to the gentleness of the scene. I wish time would stop and I could remain in this paradise forever. I feel the warmth of his presence standing behind my chair, and then the light touch of his fingertips as they gently caress my forehead to try and tame the errant locks from my face. Must we leave? As surely as the sun will greet you tomorrow. He settles into the beach chair next to mine, and for a brief moment there is a small chill where his warmth had been. He takes a slow sip from his bottle of beer, and at the same time tenderly entwines his fingers with mine. I know that this moment is perfection. The past is a lovely memory, the future a story yet to be written. It is now, in this moment of a fading sun, whispers of clouds, and gentle foaming water, that we are enveloped in a bubble of contentment. Thank you. So that's the kind of thing that I think is inspirational when there are professional photographers that can inspire stories within us. And I think the other part of this is, although this does come with a story, is that when we look at a photograph, whatever it might be, this will evoke a memory of somewhere you've been, a memory of somewhere on holiday, or a place you would like to visit, somewhere where you can go. And so during COVID, when we couldn't go anywhere, photographs were so important to us, because at that point in time, we could take the journey in our mind. And I think that's another wonderful thing about the photographs.
Perfect.
So, any other questions about stories? Or yeah?
Yeah, I'd like to know, when you take photos, we also have some words in our mind. We want to write them down. But I wonder, which way do you prefer, like non-fiction way or more creative, like fiction, to imagine? I mean, if you see some lines, whether you could imagine what happened here or what the life before here.
Yeah. So I think I like taking the photos in the non-fiction, like in the world, and then when I see what Michèle writes about them, I think that's what's kind of nice about photography, because Michèle obviously has no idea why I took the photo or sometimes where it is or anything like that, and you've created your whole other story just from seeing it. So I think in terms of what I like to read, it would be fiction, but in terms of how I shoot, it's non-fiction, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That's well said. Thank you.
Good.
Yes?
How did you, or who decided on the picture for the front cover?
That was Michèle.
Oh.
So I did the cover design, but Michelle's one ask was that it was the door on the front,
Okay.
which I didn't mind.
That was a great cover.
Thank you.
It is, and I love the design and the colors with it. But I remember when we first met, and it was actually when years ago when you were doing some work for Jasami, and you still do our cover designs,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about in a moment. But we were going through all of the photographs, and that one literally jumped off the page at me. I'm not kidding. And I said, well, I didn't say it to Joy at that time, but note to self was, that's going to be the cover of the book. I didn't tell Joy about the book until about 6 months later. But it was note to self, because it was something so, I just absolutely, and I do think that that's one of the coolest stories in there. In that, because it was when you look at it and see it and what it does create in the mind. So someone had actually asked earlier about Jasami. We have fantasy books, we have children's books, we've got them there. The fantasy was self-published, and the author was here yesterday with his sister Megan, who did the social media. We have mysteries, police procedurals, and of course A Penny for Your Thoughts. Who was written, they're like short stories, but they're written in poetry form. And we did that, that was earlier, but Gordon is actually here with his wife Anne, so the poet is actually with us at the moment. And then we do Bernie the Bear and Wee Wobblers. We also do nonfiction. We have done one book. We do work a lot with the community. And we had an author who came to us, and it was she was a chef, and it was her second round with cancer, and so she actually came to us, and her daughter wanted a legacy, so we produced 2 cookbooks. At the moment, Joy is designing the cover for a new cookbook that we're going to produce, Cooking Tales, and it's about the Asian women community who came here in the 60s and 70s, and how they brought their recipes, but how the fact that spice wasn't actually easily available in Glasgow and Scotland at the time, because it was pretty much meat pies and such. Anyway, we now have a whole community that involves colors and spices and such. So I'm putting you on the spot now because it's, but obviously it'll be, color, really big color, lots of color. I've promised her lots of color in the books with the recipes. What are you thinking about with the cover design?
Yeah, so luckily we're getting to work with another photographer called Sonia. So she's taken photos of all the women whose recipes are in the book. So we have lovely images of them in their like traditional clothes, which are very colourful, and then obviously all the spices and everything is very colourful in Indian cooking. So I think we're going to go along to her studio at some point and shoot the cover with how it would be maybe like a kitchen table while you're cooking a recipe. So a wee bit messy, but lots of things going on, and hopefully involve the women a lot in it as well, because it is their recipes that they're letting us use. So yeah.
So I've let the secret out. As well as being a phenomenal photographer, Joy does the cover designs for quite a number of our books. So the one that I really love, Furs, Sweethearts and Swan Songs, that was written, and it's about World War I, and it's a true story. There were a couple, we actually kind of borrowed the cover for when it didn't get through, and we used it for something else. But with the cover on that, there's the real photograph of Furs, but how did you design everything else?
It was quite a fun one because it was the author's great-great-granddad?
Yes.
So there was his diaries and everything, so there was a lot of inspiration from that. And then there was his photographs in his army uniform and everything, so it came together quite easily. And then on the inside we managed to get a really lovely map of where he'd kind of fought and everything. So that's on the inside of the book, which is always nice.
Oh, that's fabulous. I love that. It's a beautiful color map, so when you look at it and you see that, and we have that in hardback and paperback. Mm-hmm. We did a limited edition, which is out of print. That was just a specific run for that, so we have those. So when you're designing a book, is it like taking a photograph, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I suppose. I think for me it's just what would you pick off the shelf yourself? Quite a lot of the time, but I know it's awful to say, but you do judge a book by its cover, and mm-hmm. I've been known to not really want to go for the kind of boring covered books or ones that don't have lots of colour or something that grabs my attention. So I think that's the most important thing.
Mm. It does. We're doing a redesign on Murder, Mayhem and Romance. So just can't wait to see that one, because that one's going to be, I want lots of color in that. Oh, yeah, we can't photograph a dead body. Never mind, we won't go down that road. So with Cooking Tales and then Furs, you also did the cover of A Penny for Your Thoughts. And that kind of followed along the same lines as, because you had done a design for that for Furs, and we actually were looking at both of them, and then the other one was very, very popular. It got a 6-1 vote, and then it got my vote. Mine does carry a little bit of weight. But I did love the cover for that, so we just did the silhouette slightly differently. How did you think of all that with all the busy?
Well, Gordon's inspired by things in his life and everything for your poetry, so luckily we managed to get a lot of photographs that Gordon took and make them into the kind of silhouette of a man to kind of link back to that, and I think it looks really good.
I think so too, because it's they're all true photographs that are in there. There's just lots, so it's like pieces of your history, which is wonderful. So any other questions does anyone have? Yes, please.
Who are your photographic heroes?
Oh, that's a good one. I think there's too many to say. Now my dad will have to correct me on this, but is it David Hockney?
Yep.
The guy that does with the big magnifying glasses. I love that, and I've got a great picture of my cousin, which he won't let me use, but it's one of my favourite photos of him with the magnifying glass. So I think it's just the way that he does something different, and also kind of really zoomed in on the person's face. I love that kind of photography. And there's another one, I can't remember his name at the minute, but he kind of floats around the Italian coast, and he takes pictures of the Italians who look like they've been sunbathing for 60 years, and it's all about that kind of culture and and everything like that, and I love that as well. So that kind of documentary style. So yeah, I'd say them. But there's so many on social media nowadays. I think you can get inspired by new people every day. Yeah.
Yes.
You've obviously travelled a lot. Is there a particular country that you liked best to?
Yeah, I think Thailand's probably my favourite. I was lucky enough to be born in Bangkok, so I know it quite well, and I suppose the better you know a country, the better places you can find to take photographs and things like that. But I recently went to Peru, so I've just given Michèle some extra photographs there to see if they spark your imagination. But that was lovely as well, just because of the colours and everything. So their clothing and lots of religious festivals where they do great dances and dress in ponchos and everything. So that was really fun to photograph as well.
And the colors in those were really great. The one of them I especially love, it's just the sand and the sky. So you've got two really vibrant colors that, just, it's a juxtaposition and sharp. But they're all inspirational kind of thing. And I love the one with the street view. And then what?
It was the Witch's Market, so I knew Michèle
Yes.
would love that one because there's lots of potions to make people do things, and so yeah.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait to see what's going to come out, kind of thing. Since I do love black and whites, we are planning on one, not necessarily next year, but all Scottish. So it will all be parts of Scotland, and I'm trying to talk her into black and white. We'll have to have that conversation, but that's something I would like to do.
You can always do them in colour and change them to black and white on the.
Yes, well, that's the expert. That's the expert. I'm not. I just do it with my little camera. I'm happy to not chop off anyone's head.
Yeah.
Any other questions you want to ask? Yes?
Do you play around with things like Photoshop at all?
Yeah, I think nowadays you kind of have to know how to use these things. So I don't use Photoshop as much. It's quite confusing, and there's so much you can do. But Lightroom is quite good, so it's the sort of sister version of that, and it's a lot sort of more intuitive, I suppose, and a wee bit more simple. So I'll use that occasionally. Yeah. To make sure I'm happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah.
I was at an art festival a few years ago before the pandemic, and there was a photographer there, and what he did was he put it onto glass, so you have to do it back to front, and they were quite extraordinary. I have to say, I couldn't afford them because they were 4 figures, but they were absolutely extraordinary. So what's next for you? Where are you going with your?
So I've started doing some sort of bigger prints of a lot of my photography. So I think it's just everyone obviously looks at their photos on their phones and everything nowadays, which is great. But it's nice to have them on your wall, and I think it really helps in terms of deciding which photographs I like the best to print off and show people, because obviously with digital you can take thousands and thousands, and it's good to get a bit of clarity on what's actually working. So yeah, and obviously a few extra in there next year.
Yes. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. That's usually the conversation I have.
On that particular point, one of the things that worries me is that in my photo album on the computer, I've got thousands of photographs, but going back 3-4 decades, we always had photographs. My wife's a great editor. She always selected out, and we've got excellent albums going back to the 80s up to about 1990, and then it's all digital.
Yeah, and
we've almost nothing to show.
Yeah.
And it's just too much trouble. So, I noticed my son and daughter-in-law, they can go into the phone and show photographs. I can't really do that because it takes me too long to find it.
Yeah, no, I think I do make an effort to print off photographs and put them in albums and stuff like that, because it does get, and there's so many, I think you probably all take photos every day, so it's a lot more than if you were using film cameras or.
So you recommend?
Yeah, definitely, and it's nice to hold them as well.
I actually done that as well. But I went back and scanned them all. I took them on my computer.
Oh,
and scanned them. It takes a long time.
I really don't want to go there.
You could always make it collage. On the wall.
I've got a lot of my transitional period digitised, but as I say, it's in the computer and it's forgotten about, which annoys me.
Yeah, I think you've actually done some where there's the photographs and you put them all together and it's almost like a slideshow, which would work.
Yeah.
So you can kind of do that.
I was going to say, I did a few years ago, I printed off family ones from my parents and grandparents, and I got them printed off by Boots, and then I got pegs. So I had a blank wall in my flat, and I've put it from the beginning all the way up to, well, not currently, but recently. So there's family photographs, and when anybody comes in, that's immediately where they go. And who's this? And oh, that's great, and that's black and white. And look at the size of those ones, because I took some of the old ones my parents shot in the little box cameras, so they're all black and white and sepia colours. So you can see the gradations of colour as it comes out with photographs. So that's fascinating, and you can always add to it. You know, that's the great thing, as long as you've got enough pegs.
And you don't run out of wall.
Exactly.
So any other questions about photographs or such? Well, I think we'll finish it off right there. So what I will say is, well, it's been a wonderful time here at the Byres Road Book Festival. And Joy, have you enjoyed yourself?
Yes, very much.
So it's come to that point in time where I'm going to ask for your shout out. Who would you like to give a shout out to?
I would like to shout out everyone that came along today and asked such fantastic questions.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful point, because they did. They had excellent questions, and it was all very informative, which everybody has got to enjoy on that. My shout out is to all the photographers who have yet to, have their books published, have their photographs published. Stick with it. Give your best and never give up. And as always, this is Michèle at Jasami Bookworm Podcast, wishing you a sunny day.